Hello, I'm Brent Ellis, president at Spring Arbor University. I want to thank you for participating in our Evening at the Arbor virtual event. We had hoped that we would be able to invite you to come to campus and to continue the amazing series that we've had over the last number of years of Evening at the Arbor. I remember when we first began this program many years back, we thought, let's find a way that we can share the impact of Spring Arbor University, faculty, staff, and our students on the community, on Jackson County, and within the state of Michigan. And through the years, this event has grown both in what we've been able to share, but also in the response and in the amount of people that would come and participate. And so instead of being able to bring you to campus, we thought we would bring our campus to you this year. And thank you for your investment, because your investment in Spring Arbor University allows our students and our faculty and our staff to do the amazing things that they do to impact society and culture. The last line of our concept statement, our mission statement, is really it's an outcome goal. It says that we want our students to be critical participants in the contemporary world, our graduates to be critical participants in the contemporary world, to be outstanding in their discipline, in what they've studied, in their preparation, to be grounded in their faith, and through that powerful combination to go out into the world and be messengers of redemption and reconciliation wherever God leads them. That's what we talk about, critical participation in the contemporary world. And so today, even in this virtual segment, we want to be able to share some of the great stories that are coming out of our university that you've helped generate through your generosity and through your giving to make this world a better place.
Good evening. I'm Phil Curtis, attorney with the law firm of Curtis and Brelinski. And once again, it is a great pleasure for us to be the sponsor of the Evening at the Arbor. This year's event is a little unique because it's virtual, but with that, we're very glad to be involved again and hope to be so in the future. Our firm has been very involved in the Jackson community for a long time, and it's always been our feeling that we need to give back to the community that has been so generous to us and our families over the years. We also feel that it's extremely important during these difficult times to remember organizations in our community that are hurting just like everybody else, and particularly those organizations that are near and dear to my heart, the nonprofit arts organizations in our community. I'm very positive about the future of our community, and I was speaking with my son the other day and urging him not to jump off the cliff, because in my lifetime I've been through a number of experiences like this, going back to the oil embargo and other crises that we faced during my lifetime, and we've always come through these terrible events better and stronger than before, and I have no doubt that it'll be the case with the tragic situation that we're dealing with right now. Finally, I would like to say what a pleasure it has been working with Spring Arbor University over the years. It's a great organization. I've become very close friends with Doug and Brent, the great leaders of this organization, and like other organizations, Spring Arbor University needs our continued love and support.
An Evening at the Arbor is our opportunity to showcase a different aspect of Spring Arbor University to our community. We're extremely grateful to Phil Curtis and Brad Brelinski for believing in this event for the last 6 years. Your support of SAU means so much to us.
I'm excited to present to you this year's recipient of the Faith F. Small Community Faithfulness Award. This year's recipient is an individual who has served significantly, not just in Jackson County, but throughout the entire state of Michigan. From her service on Spring Arbor University's Jennie School of Business Advisory Council, to her work with the Jackson Community Foundation and the Chamber of Commerce in the city of Jackson, and then beyond, both at the state level and at the federal level, serving as district representatives for some of our state and federal legislators. RENELL Weathers has tirelessly worked to impact the lives of those that she encounters personally, but also to leverage and utilize all of the resources of the community in which she has given so significantly. And so I'm excited to present this year's Community Faithfulness, the Faith F. Small Community Faithfulness Award to RENELL Weathers.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. I'm extremely honored to receive the Faith Small Community Faithfulness Award. I want to thank the committee and anyone that had a hand in my receiving this award. I had the privilege of being in the company of Faith Small several times and always in awe of her commitment to Spring Arbor and Jackson County. When I was informed that I was the recipient, I was speechless. And as my family and colleagues will attest, that is rare. My parents instilled in me the legacy of stewardship and serving the community where God has planted you. My father was a pastor, block club president, and all-around servant to the people. My mother showed me that nothing was impossible. They were faithful, resourceful, and committed. If I exude only a little of what they accomplished, I'm thankful. I moved to Jackson about 20 years ago with my husband and 2 teenage daughters. As I'm sure all of you can guess, that was a story all by itself. On the surface, most would say ours was a corporate move. But as believers, we knew it was only God. Jackson embraced us. First, because of the corporate dollars my husband provided to support the many amazing nonprofits that we're blessed to have here in our community. Then it became mutual. I'm a firm believer that when you give yourself freely to the work of helping others, it comes back multiplied. I have been richly blessed by the people and organizations where I have supported by giving of my time and resources. To see the faces of students that couldn't read but now can, or those who are thinking about how to move forward in their careers have that aha moment. Or when you bring equitable solutions to help local nonprofits have greater access to funding. Now, that is my reward. We are currently experiencing a crisis. Many of our students and families are in flux, clueless as to what may happen next. We all probably share in that uneasiness. One thing I know for sure and hold on to, that we have a God that's in control. Whatever we are going through, lean on Him and you will not go wrong. Love of community and giving back comes naturally to me. It's who I am. I never think about being recognized. It's just what I do. So thank you for giving me this honor. I think my parents would be proud.
Tonight is our 6th annual Evening at the Arbor event. We look forward to this event every year so we can invite you into the SAU community. Tonight's sponsors have given generously to provide scholarships to students like me. I have personally been impacted by the scholarships because it has allowed me to remain in the place that I love to call home. I have grown so much as a leader since coming to campus by being able to serve as a peer advisor and the president of Student Government Association, and have made priceless memories with my professors and peers. Thank you to our gold sponsors, Alro Steel, CP Federal Credit Union, and Walton Insurance Group.
PHELPS was founded on the basic principles that we're going to help children and families at their earliest point of need. And whatever the need of a child and family, we come alongside them and we do our utmost to help them help themselves, so that when we're gone and absent from their life, they're going to have the skills and the abilities to help themselves beyond our time with them. And that's what we do. I started work at a local juvenile detention center 35 years ago yesterday. That work in the past several decades have really been the answer to God's calling for me to work with children and families in the juvenile justice system and the mental health and the child welfare fields. It is interesting that everything that I have done in my life, every situation, has uniquely prepared me to do exactly that work with those children and families. When I came to Spring Arbor College, I was living a life in poverty. I had an alcoholic father, and my parents were divorced at an early age. And when I came here, I was really trying to find myself. And that's exactly what Spring Arbor did for me. From the day I entered this campus, I was greeted by people that loved me, cared for me, much more beyond just the education. They were going to help me figure out and answer that calling that God was already preparing me for. Over the years, I've often told people I'm trying to work myself out of a job, because wouldn't it be great if we had an environment that didn't have poverty and homelessness and crime and violence? And while I've tried to do that, always there's a continued need. And that's really what led to me working at Highfields. And over the past 14 years, I realized that my job is to prepare individuals to go out and do the work. And that's exactly what I've been doing. And then, having worked in a residential program, worked with children, worked with families, I know what the needs of my staff are. I know that they can get burned out because I've been there myself. And as I look back at everything Spring Arbor gave me and taught me to be a social worker, taught me to be a leader, and empowered me to go on and do great things, honestly, it's because of what this university poured into me. It's God's calling, and I honestly think it's my faithfulness in trying to honor that calling, and that's what's really helped prepare me to do the work I do today. I think of a young man named Nate that we worked with 4 years ago. Nate came to us and he was struggling. He was involved in the juvenile justice system. His life was falling apart. He was bruised, he was battered, he was beaten down, and really had no purpose in life. And we were able to help him figure those things out. And I remember his mom said, "You saved Nate's life. Without Highfields and without the work that you did, he would absolutely be lost." And then just less than a month after that, Nate died due to a senseless act of violence. And as I talked to his mom, she said, don't be sad. While we lost Nate, you still saved his life. You helped him slay the dragons that he had. And for that, I'm so eternally grateful. Everything that I do as a CEO of a human services nonprofit, for me, it began all right here at Spring Arbor College, now Spring Arbor University, because this is where people invested in me, educated me, and gave me the skills to go out and to do the things that I do now as a CEO.
We're so glad that you joined us tonight for an evening at the Arbor, and a special thank you to our Blue sponsors, Horizons Planning Corporation, PS Food Mart, Trips Auto Collision Centers, and Willis & Macknick PC. We're so grateful for the generous donations these sponsors have provided. Through these, students like me receive scholarships and opportunities to practice skills related to our future careers, and the ability to work alongside experienced professors who know their fields and care about our success.
My name is Dr. Jennifer Mainka, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I'm a 2001 Spring Arbor graduate. One of the biggest things that I've learned in my professional career and in my faith is to get out of my own way and my own plans. I first learned that in a Core 101 activity at Spring Arbor. We were assigned to walk around campus and just sit and listen to God. As somebody who doesn't do a lot of sitting and listening, but more asking God to bless my plans, that was the first time I had done that. And I remember clearly Him telling me to change my major, change my priorities for my family and for my life, and that has guided every decision that I've made since then. I'm so blessed to be able to work in my local community and do Christian counseling. It's very difficult, though, when you're working with couples where there's been infidelity or there have been breaches of trust, and you reach that critical point in the session where, as the therapist, I can either let it continue to go in the direction that it's headed, say they're feeling a sense of hopelessness, or I can choose to re-engage. And I remember one couple in particular where this happened. They were fighting and it felt very hopeless. And I just sat there and prayed to God that He make it clear to me what I should do next, and that it be His plan for their lives and not what I think should happen. And I can happily tell you that they worked through everything. It took a lot of hard work, but I saw them years later and they talked about how they'd never been closer. They even had a few more kids. And if that can happen by me just getting out of my own way and letting God work through me, then that's what I want to do. That's not a lesson that I learned in my time at secular graduate school or in my internship or my training. I'm so grateful to have been able to attend a Christian university like Spring Arbor. I'm grateful my parents prioritized that my husband's parents prioritized that. I'm grateful for godly coaches and professors when I was there, who I even reached out to and years later for advice when things were difficult in my profession. I'm thankful for a firm foundation on which to value my marriage, raise my children, love my family and friends, run my business, serve my community, and impact those in my circle of influence. That is my mission field, and I'm so glad God defined it for me.
Hi, I'm Jennie Pollak. I graduated from Spring Arbor in 2006 with my bachelor's in social work, and then went on to finish my master's degree in social work from MSU. Currently, I work as the Deputy Executive Director at Michigan 211 and also support other information and referral programs across the country. On the side, personally, I also help coordinate our American Heritage Girls troop at Jack Snaz Church.
And I'm Nick Pollak. I'm an 03 graduate of the social work program and the psychology program. I got my master's degree from Michigan State back in 05, where I was planning on doing macro social work, and I've done clinical social work since. I currently work for community mental health in Clinton, E, and Ingham as a home-based therapist, where I've been for almost 7 years. And then I've been an affiliate professor of social work for the BSW program, and then the SW program for almost 11 years in May. So a little bit about our family as well. We have 6 kids. We do foster care, and we're hoping to get our property registered as a farm and start doing an animal assistive therapy.
Yeah, big dreams.
Yeah.
Talk about a time that I know that I've made a difference on someone. It's kind of, I don't know, hard to describe from my perspective, but there was one colleague or staff that I supervised, and over our relationship, I suppose, we had different points of just intersecting around social work, and her background, her passion and desires, and so that that day-to-day supervision turned into licensing, her social work license supervision. From the time that we connected, she was in her bachelor's program at Spring Arbor, and it was tough balancing school and work and kind of the other life stressors that she had. But I continued kindly challenging her and encouraging her, sharing, I guess, kind of my personal story too, how I continued pressing on for my bachelor's and master's programs. I could hear her passion of wanting to help others, and so just helping her continue on. There's been many times that she has said that she's appreciated that encouragement and just that real perspective. Now she's on her way to finishing her master's program and really making a difference in the people that she serves.
And ironically, I've actually had this person in class, and just watching how Jennie's relationship with her has pushed her to grow. She's not a Christian, but she definitely has a lot of ties to people who have showed God's love to her. So it was amazing to watch my wife build this relationship and watch her grow through, watch this student grow through her BSW and MSW program. It's just amazing to watch how God uses each one of us. For me, it's interesting because, like I said, I was going to be a macro social worker. I was going to do program evaluation, research. I wasn't planning on doing clinical direct work, and God put me in different places at the right time. I've been a home-based therapist for about 15 years of my career. So over the last couple of years, I had a client that had several different therapists before me. And in home-based, you go into people's homes, you go to the schools, you go to the hospitals, you visit them wherever, whatever's going on. And so when I got this teenager, people didn't want to work with him, and they were afraid of him because he was almost 7 feet tall. He had schizophrenia, and when I met with him, he basically thought he was a lost cause. And so I would pick him up from school, and we would stop and get a pop and a bag of chips, or and by the way, feeding him was ridiculous. And just spending time with him for about 2 years and watching him grow, and he ended up having to move out of home and live in a shelter for a while because of his poor relationship with his mom. And I was the one person in his life that picked him up and did things with him and tried to show him that love. So when he was 18, he decided to move down with his dad in another area of the country. And Jen and I were on vacation, and I got a call from him, and he left a message. And in this message, he just talked about, even though I never talked about my beliefs and my values as a Christian, all that, he knew that I was a Christian and that I truly did love and care about him, and that he was able to do the things that he's done because there was one person in his life that just cared about him, and no matter what he did and the poor choices he made, was still there for him in his life. And this is a kid. He's gone on and he's actually doing well in a job. He's taking his medication. He reaches out to me just to let me know how well he's doing. And it's amazing to see that impact. Just knowing that God's using me, that I had no plans ever of actually doing therapy when I did my master's degree. So it's just, it's amazing where God takes you and who God puts in your life to impact.
Yep, absolutely.
So one last piece of what's something that maybe impacted us while we're at Spring Arbor. In social work, most people know that there's typically not a lot of guys. I was the only guy in my group, and so there was 17 females and me. And it was amazing to have this close-knit people around me that when life challenges happened, we were a group and we supported each other. And I still have many relationships from that. So class of 03, you guys rock.
I agree. So my social work program was small as well, and we really got to know each other. Got to support one another, and so specifically, Bonnie, we made these burnout cards during, I think, probably the end of our time at Spring Arbor. One side has what's our stressors, and the other side has kind of our self-care. I have held on to that and been able to realize ahead of time, right? Like when things are just kind of going south or really getting overwhelmed. Ironically, just a couple months ago, I did a presentation nationally on how to manage work-life balance with 6 kids and a farm and everything. And I called back to that card and just the intentionality behind realizing how to take care of yourself, what you need, what God has designed you to need, and how to fill the holes before they kind of get bigger. So I think one other piece of our time with Spring Arbor, both of us, our cross-cultural experiences really impacted us. It's impacted kind of the traveling and the journeys, the exploration that we do as a family, and also really understanding the other perspectives, how people live, building relationships when you have limited means, right? And that's key in social work, is building those connections. I think, just working with people from all walks of life. I did a semester abroad in Russia, and Nick did
Hungary and Poland. Well, just thank you for this opportunity to talk about a little bit of our lives and about how God is using us.
Yes, thank you.
Rise Above is a nonprofit ministry in Jackson, Michigan that reaches out to at-risk kids, predominantly those students that have been expelled from public schools that have no other resource to complete their education. We have students that have brought guns to school, we have arsonists, we have drug dealers, you name it, we've got it here. But I would challenge anybody that comes into our building to point out who's who, because they've changed so dramatically.
I've gained a lot of self-control here, and I couldn't really tell you how or why. It's just something about like the energy here makes me want to not be immature per se, or I just feel like I grew up way more as soon as I came here. And I can just see that Rise Above just brings out the best in everybody here, and it's awesome. And I don't see how they're doing it, but they are. They are not here just to make you better from whatever mistake you made at your other school. They're here to make sure that you actually rise above and keep going from that, not just move on from your mistake. It's way more than that. It's way more.
When I started Rise Above and we felt led to do this, one of the first people I went to was Brent ELLIS, President Brent ELLIS from Spring Arbor University. He said, Neil, whether it's 2 weeks or 2 years, I will always be here for you. And you know what? He has not let me down. I think that is really significant when we talk about what SAU represents, in that we have a real community that is legitimately trying to impact, through its students, the community that they live in.
Thank you for celebrating with us our School of Social Sciences tonight. It's been a lot of fun to highlight some of our alum, and we are especially grateful to all the sponsors who made tonight's event possible, such as our reception sponsor, Dean Transportation. Your continued contribution means so much to students like me because we're able to grow as stronger servant leaders in our communities, become lifelong learners, as well as become more faithful Christians. So just thank you for your continued support. It means a lot to us.
Thank you for participating in the Evening at the Arbor virtual. I hope that through this you have been encouraged. I know we were excited to be able to share with you, even in this format, the amazing work of our faculty, our staff, and our students. We live in a time right now that is unprecedented, really, within the scope of the United States of America. Not within the history of the world, however. And I think it's important to keep in mind a context of how we respond and really what we are called to do as men and women of faith. 1 John chapter 2, John is writing to early believers, and one of the things that he talks about, and I think it's a powerful message, he says this, he says, that the truth is in you, and that the darkness is fading away because the light has already come. So within you, even in the midst of a dark world, a world that doesn't necessarily recognize the hope of eternity, in you, through the redemptive work of Jesus Christ and through the empowering of the Holy Spirit, you have the ability to go and impact this world and to shine the light of Christ regardless of where you are, regardless of the circumstances that you face. Our hope is in eternity. And in this world, as Jesus said, we may have trouble, but He's overcome the world. So my encouragement to you is to live in that hope, to let your light shine in this time of darkness. Our world needs hope. Our world needs context. Our world needs orientation. And so please continue the amazing things that you've done, but partner with all of our students and our faculty and staff as we too attempt to do our very best to let the light of Christ shine in the midst of our lives.